Hi, this is Sarah.
And this is Rachel.
And this is the Rippah Diaries, a podcast where we rip apart, episode by episode, the Vampire Diaries. Warning, this is a rewatch podcast, so we always bring up spoilers.
Yeah, this week we're talking about Season 3, Episode 13, Bringing Out the Dead.
A.k.a.
The originals. Basically the start of the originals. The
Yeah.
originals, the show's prequel, basically.
Yeah. This name always throws me off, though, when you're just, like, looking at a list of episode titles, because I always think this is Ghost World.
Yes.
Bringing Out the Dead, Ghost World, it's too similar for me.
Yeah. They are technically bringing out the sort of dead,
Yeah.
but, like, yeah,
Both,
it doesn't ring a bell to me.
Yeah, like, both are more accurate to what they actually are.
Yeah.
But they're interchangeable to me.
Yeah.
Realistically. But picking up right where we left off in the last episode, so I hope you've watched episode 12 because
yeah.
12 and 13 to me feel like sort of a part 1 and part 2. They're very like hand-in-hand episodes in a way.
Definitely.
A lot of stuff continues from that last one into this one, and you kind of have to watch both to really get what's going on. So jumping right in, exactly like where we left off in episode 12 at Klaus's Michelson mansion, Elijah is standing in front of Klaus, wiping the blood off of his hands with a white handkerchief after killing Daniel. And Elijah says, "You look surprised to see me, so it wasn't you that removed the dagger from my chest." And Klaus is still just like shocked, all upset, as Elijah noted.
Yeah.
And he tries to distract, saying, "You look like you could do with a drink. We have a lot to discuss, so shall we?" And he's like stuttering over the lines. Like Klaus is definitely very shaken by this.
For
he definitely
sure.
did not see this coming.
No, not at all. And isn't sure how it's going to play out.
No, and I love how Klaus, although usually very, very fearless in like every day against anybody, it is always an exception with his family. He's always so terrified of like whether it's like with Michael, the wrath and the potential of dying, or with like here with Elijah of like the judgment and the potential consequences of like his actions.
Yeah.
And being left and being alone and those kinds of things, as we will explore in this episode. But anyway, Elijah is not willing to play along with the let's just have a drink and catch up game. So suddenly he attacks Klaus and like throws him through the window and he breaks the glass and everything. And Klaus is like sitting up saying, "Easy, I just finished renovating." Always will rise to a challenge. And Klaus rushes at Elijah, and Elijah then crashes into a table, breaking it. They're just like destroying the whole house that was literally just finished. And Klaus tries poorly to dig himself again out of this like situation he's gotten himself into, saying, "You know you have every right to be mad at me, but I kept my word. I reunited you." Why can't I say this line? "I reunited you with our family."
Yep.
Which
technically
I guess
true.
He did.
Technically
he
true.
Did, but it's like, again, what I always say about Klaus, about how he sometimes has these very like childish retorts where it's just like, "I did what I said."
Yeah.
He's so petty in like
He really
the funniest
is.
way. And so, again, Elijah attacks him. Obviously, he's not willing to just give up so easy. And Klaus gets knocked into one of the coffins that was right there. Of course, holding, as we know, Finn and Cole. At this point, you just know them as like the mystery original siblings.
Yeah.
And so Klaus opens up one of the coffins next to him and pulls the dagger out of who we know is Cole.
Yep.
But at the time is your first look at this like mystery original sibling. And he rushes at Elijah with the dagger and is like holding it over Elijah, who's getting pinned against Finn's coffin. And he's holding it up threateningly, saying, "Don't make me do it. Like, I don't want to." And Elijah says, "Come on, use it. I dare you. Then you'll have Cole to deal with." So then the first name drop of the other original sibling. And Klaus lowers the dagger and tells Elijah Michael is dead. And Elijah's obviously shocked to hear this. And Klaus like lets go of him. And Elijah stands up looking very surprised. And he's like, "Then why is everybody still in their coffins? Like, what is going on? Why?" He says it much more, Elijah than that. Of like, why is our family still asleep in these coffins?
Yep.
And he says, "Finn for over 900 years, Cole for over a century." Love the info dump happening in this episode. Like, there's so many good little details dropped about the originals. And Klaus says, "Because of Stefan Salvatore." I was like, sure.
Yep, that's why.
So Stefan's fault. King of deflecting blame. It has nothing to do with Klaus or his choices. And Klaus does admit, though, to Elijah that there are things he doesn't know about their past. Things about how their mother died. and things that he has decided he is now ready to tell Elijah. And Klaus goes over, there's like this small little table between the coffins with like a little urn on it, and he removes it and dips the dagger in.
He's like swirling it around.
I was like, this is so funny, not to just keep it in like the little glass jar. He's like got a special urn just for the ashes that he used to kill his siblings. And so he dips it in, and then he takes that dagger and of course goes over to Cole's coffin, and Elijah like kind of jumps forward like, well, wait a second. Like, obviously, he wants to wake up his siblings. That's his whole goal since we've known Elijah.
Yeah.
And so, of course, he wants to stop him, but he can't. And Klaus says, always and forever, I need you to stand by my side. Be my brother. Help me destroy Stefan. And I promise you, our whole family will be whole again. And then Klaus, daggers Cole and closes the coffin lid. So insane.
These wild.
The best start to an episode. I love jumping right into an episode with an original scene. I know. It's so good.
I know. Oh, and it only gets better.
It does only get better.
But for now, we pick up with Elena and Alaric. Elena says good morning to Alaric while he's like looking through cabinets. He's like, where's the aspirin? And Elena is like, she like sees an empty bottle of whiskey and like a glass next to it. And she's like, oh, you're hungover. And it's obviously, like, kind of a little weird thing because Alaric apologizes and it's like, it was a weird night, sorry. And Elena tells him not to feel guilty about the Meredith thing because he had Meredith over in the last episode and kissed her. And Alaric is like, thank you for saying that, but that's not what I feel guilty for. I feel guilty for whiskey dialing Meredith at 2 a.m. He said, literally. And Elena is like, no. And Alaric, like, we've all been there. And Alaric's like, yeah, I did.
Well, he kind of smirks when he says it too. He's like, yeah, I did. Like I don't know. It's kind of like almost like I don't know. It's such a funny like delivery of that line.
Yeah, Alaric is in a weird spot right now.
Yeah.
And Elena asks if Meredith was cool about the 2 a.m. drunk dial. And Alaric says as soon as the aspirin kicks in and he remembers the conversation, he'll let her know.
Yeah.
Why they haven't tried to put Alaric in rehab at this point.
I don't know. This is what I've said like the last 3 episodes is they're just going in and in and in on this alcoholic plot. It's insane.
Yeah. I guess the point is he needs to be blacking out and like have a reason to be like to explain away his blacking out. I don't know. We'll get there. That'll come up more. And at this point the doorbell rings and it's Liz. She's waiting outside holding a plastic evidence bag. And Elena opens the door and like walks out onto the porch with Alaric, and Elena asks if everything is okay. And Liz says, this is an unconventional conversation we're about to have, so I hope you'll protect me on it.
Yeah.
And Alaric is like, of course. And Liz says, I assume you know about Brian Walters, the medical examiner, being murdered. And they both do. They say they do. And Liz says, we've been investigating because someone drove a stake through his heart. And she shows them, like, the bag with the stake in it. And Alaric is like, that's one of ours, like, from a set that was at the Gilbert Lake House. And Liz is like, that's why I'm here. I haven't told anyone yet. But forensics ran prints on it. And there was only one set of fingerprints on it. And it was yours. Looking at Elena.
Yeah.
And Elena is like, what? Yeah. Obviously, no one really knows what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the most shocking twist at the time because I do feel like you almost believe she's going to say Alaric because she says yours and there's sort of this pause before you realize she's looking at Elena. And I feel like in that moment, you're like between Elena and Alaric, you're like, oh, Alaric. He's always like holding the weapons.
Yeah,
you don't
whatever.
think he's the one that killed Brian or anything like that. But it is like, it makes way more sense for his prints to be on the stake than Elena's. Yeah. Although if it's from their set, anybody's could be on it. Mm-hmm. So it is interesting, like an interesting little fake out to be like, Elena's prints are on the weapon.
Yeah, but also, why do they have Elena's fingerprints? Like,
I feel like when you're a kid, you get them like.
Yeah, I guess that's sometimes a thing.
I think I did that at the police station where it's like, I don't know, you just do it at school. Also, you have to do them at school.
You do?
I think I did them.
I don't know.
Maybe that was just for funsies, but I feel like we did them.
Maybe. I don't know.
Like if you ever get kidnapped, you never had to do that?
Oh my God, no.
Rachel's parents didn't take the preventive measures of mine.
Let her go. No.
I swear I did that at the police station as a kid.
No, I know that's a thing that sometimes they like come in and take your fingerprints, but still, it feels weird that they have Elena's, but also that hers are the only ones on it.
Yeah.
We find out these were the ones in Damon's car. Like, how are his or Alaric's not on them?
Well, they're the set from the lake house, so anybody could have touched them enough. I'm sure they all touched it at some point, and hers just happened to be the only ones with a clean print.
I guess, yeah.
Also, they probably don't have Damon's fingerprints, so
that's true.
They probably had an unidentified print, and Liz was like, ignore it.
Yeah, unidentified print connected to 30 murders in the Mystic Falls area.
Yeah.
It's probably true.
So anyway, too much time on fingerprints.
Anyway, yeah.
Going like right from there, we kind of drop into like a phone call where Damon is walking through like a meadow, a field, and he's on the phone with Elena, and he's saying, "So you're the prime suspect, huh?" And she's like, "Obviously, Liz doesn't think I did it," but they're just trying to figure out like, you know, what's going on. Why does somebody have this weapon? Why are they using it to kill a council member? Like, just the whole thing. And Damon says to ask Rick about Meredith and if she knew where the weapons are. And Alaric's like, "You're on the speakerphone, dick."
Yeah.
It's just so funny. Because we see Elena and Alaric now are like in the kitchen and they're sorting through the weapons. They're like starting to look at kind of their supply, presumably to look what's missing.
Yeah.
And, you know, Damon's just, again, walking through this field on the phone with them. And he tells Alaric to not get so defensive and points out that Meredith, like, saw the weapons. Sorry, Alaric says that Meredith had seen the weapons last night, which
only last night
because Brian was killed several days ago. So like, it's not really that obvious that it could be her, because that timing just doesn't line up right. And Elena's like, "It wasn't Meredith. I refuse to believe it was Meredith." She says, "I refuse to believe that your luck with women is that tragic." And Damon says, you know, going back into it, of who else knows about Alaric's slasher stash? And Alaric says, "Who doesn't?" Yeah. "I've got weapons everywhere. Here, the school, my loft, my car, everywhere."
Which, I just love that he thinks, you know, like, he says he has them at the school everywhere and that people know about them.
Yeah, I think that's so funny.
What does he expect? I guess everyone in the loop, like, knows about these weapons.
Yeah, and
like,
I think the implication is more like they're so spread out that theoretically anyone could find them.
Yeah.
Even if you don't know about them. Like, anyone could stumble on the stash at the school, any janitor or whatever, you know, anybody. So it's not like it's that crazy that someone could steal them. And so Damon's just like, obviously it's not a janitor. The conclusion is it must be Klaus screwing with them. Mm-hmm. But Elena's like, well, maybe it's Stefan. And she's saying how like he had this crazy night that night. Obviously that's the night he literally kidnapped Elena and almost drove her off the bridge. So she says he could do anything. And Damon says it makes him miss the bunny snacking pacifist Stefan. That is a tongue twister. But, you know, as they're saying this, Damon's like, "Actually, I gotta go. I'll talk to you guys about this later." And Alaric's like, "What are you doing?" And Damon said, "Tea with an old friend," and hangs up the phone. And as he says, "Tea with an old friend," we, of course, see who he's been walking in this field to meet up with. Elijah.
I love it.
Fave. Looking so prim and proper in his suit. I was literally, like, screaming my head off internally. I was like... The way he's standing there with the one hand in the pocket, so casual, but like in the suit, in the field, like he just has so much presence and so like menacing in like an interesting way. I forgot how much I miss him, and I love his new haircut.
Yeah, true. I know. Oh, I miss him so bad. But yeah, they pull up. Elijah comes up to him and says, "You left something in my jacket pocket," and he pulls out like a piece of paper, and it's a note. And Damon says, "Oh yeah. Dear Elijah, let's get together, plot the destruction of your brother, XOXO." And Elijah finishes, "Damon." And Damon asks if he was right to undagger him, or are they going to have a problem here? And Elijah's like, "I'm here, let's talk." And Damon says he'll start with an easy question. Any idea what Klaus killing weapon is in the magically sealed mystery coffin? Mm-hmm. Obviously, we'll see what Elijah has to say about that. You say, "Oh my God." Yeah, we'll see what Elijah has to say about that if Damon gets any info from him. Yeah, but
that was so brilliant, though. Leaving the note in Elijah's jacket, waiting for him to find it. Yeah, so smart, because then Klaus isn't gonna find it.
Yeah, but also, how do they coordinate this spot? Like,
yeah, I know. I must think that the note said like whatever field this time tomorrow, Damon. Let's kill your brother.
Yeah, let's let's do this. Yeah.
But yeah, it's
like
so
as if
smart.
you didn't betray me the last time.
Yeah. So like going back to the last episode of how it was so smart of Damon to grab the locked box, knowing with minimal time, that's the one you have to get out. To take out the dagger from Elijah, knowing you need to leave another distraction for Klaus so that he doesn't immediately get on you about the locked box being missing. Yeah. And then leaving the note to not only like just introduce Elijah as this like mystery player in all of this, but try to sway him to their side before he gets wrapped up in the Klaus of it all again. Yeah.
Also, I had the thought when like a little bit later in the episode when they, you know, they finally undagger everyone. It also leaves them short a dagger and gets Damon a dagger for potential future use.
Exactly. And that's what puts them in the situation at the start of the episode where Elijah almost gets daggered. But then it's like,
you have to choose.
Then Klaus has to let Cole wake up. Yeah. Which is not preferable. No. So, yeah, it is an interesting situation to put Klaus in and to put Damon in. And it's just all around really actually very well played.
Glad we're back to these schemes.
Yeah, me too. They're my favorite when a plan actually works and pays off and is smart.
Yeah. Another plan.
Yeah, I was going to
say ongoing.
Yeah, not planning out well or smart or anything. Just sort of following along in place and just following the chips where they may and all of that. Of course,
get there.
Yeah, they'll get there. Of course, is the story of the locked coffin, of the secret, you know, what's in the box situation. Yep. And we see where it was moved to, which is, of course, the old Lockwood cellar, like, cave.
Yep.
Yeah. And so Abby, Bonnie, and Stefan are walking through the, like, cave system. More like Stefan is walking through the cave system and they're getting, like, dragged along. Yeah. Yeah. And he's, like, hauling on, saying, keep up, we don't have much time.
Of course.
And they get to the cave and they see the coffin is inside, which I was like, I feel like they probably should have put a coffin here in the first place. This was definitely a better hiding spot in terms of no vampire can even get in. Yeah. But I understand not putting it because Klaus could easily compel someone to go get it for him anyway.
Yeah. Also, Stefan at first, like, didn't trust anyone. Like, he was using the witches to hide it. And...
Yeah. But still, I don't know. I think it would have been smarter anyway to have coffin split up. Like, they should have had, like, Cole and the locked one in here, and or everyone in a different spot is what they should have done.
Yeah, true.
It would have been harder to think of two more spots that were just as, like, interesting and secure and safe and blah blah blah.
The Vervain well in the Lockwood. I don't know.
Finn is just sizzling in there.
Yeah, that's a good spot for
there's definitely some spots. Like, I don't know. It definitely would make more sense to split them up. But they didn't do that. So now they've got the sealed coffin in the cave that no vampire can enter. And they're reminding us that it's sealed and blah, 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 setting stuff up, that it's the one that Klaus wants the most, and that no vampire can get into this cave. They're re-reminding in case you're just tuning in for some reason. Yeah. And so Stefan starts threatening Abby that she's probably on Klaus's hit list now, so she needs to get this coffin open. And she's like, I don't have any powers. And he's like, well, I don't believe you. Yeah. And time is ticking anyway, so you better fix it. Just the usual. He says, scrape together whatever magic you have left.
Which, I have to say, it was so unrelated, but, like, I don't know what they were thinking with this. Like, it was really cool when they first discovered the caves, but there's, like, rippling light. Which, like, you know, happens when it's, like, I guess there's, like, water or something. I was going to say,
it looks like there's water.
There must be water somewhere in there. Like, that's the idea, even though we never see it. But it's so distracting, this whole scene. It's, like, rippling on Stefan's face. So he's, like, taunting Abby, you know, get to work, whatever, you have no power, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know. I was just taking me out of it. It was like the Aurora Borealis is randomly down here in these caves, just rippling on Stefan's face.
I didn't even notice it, to be honest, but I have noticed it before that they use that lighting effect, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense since there is no light source down there, but... They could have just as easily done a flashlight. Yeah. They just wanted to have some fun. They were let the DP do what they want.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun when they first discovered it because it added to, like, the magical effect. That's true. But this, And
they kind of got away with it sometimes because they had the big work lights to take, like, photos and stuff. So it's not even noticeable in half the scenes anyway.
Yeah.
So, but this one, it's more noticeable.
It was noticeable to me, at least. Yeah. It took me out of it. Also, Stefan, like, goes out of the cave after that conversation. And when he, like, gets outside of the cave tunnel system, Elena is waiting for him there. And Stefan is like, what are you doing here? And Elena says Bonnie told her that they were there because Elena needs to talk to him. And Stefan is like, there's nothing to talk about. I'm focused on getting the coffin open. Like, he's having none of this. And Elena asks him if he killed Brian Walters, the medical examiner. And Stefan is like, why would you think I did that?
Yeah, immediately so offended.
Yeah, so offended. Like, okay, Stefan. And Elena's like, maybe because I don't know what you're capable of anymore. And Stefan is just like, believe what you want. Like, not affirming or denying. Like, just being sassy. And Elena says she doesn't want to believe any of this. And Stefan, like, finishes the thought by saying, but you had to ask me anyway. Obviously, like, you know, they both know that Stefan's off the rails. Mm-hmm. And Stefan then asks Elena if she asked Damon if he's killed anyone lately. And Elena just doesn't really answer, and she leaves. Or he leaves, sorry. Yeah. He just walks away.
Yeah, it's just, I think this attitude from Stefan is so not fair. Like, he is actively been off the rails lately. He tried to kill her, like, 2 days ago. Yeah, he's, like, getting emotional, like, in the last 24 hours. But that doesn't mean anything. Yeah. There's no reason for her to trust him and not have to. She didn't have to ask Damon. She trusts Damon. She does not trust Stefan, and he's actively doing things to, like, undermine and, like, ruin the whole situation for everybody. So, like, it was fair to ask him, and it was not fair of him to act like she should be guilty or something or feel bad about it.
Yeah, I don't know why he's catching such an attitude. I can only assume it's, like, he's just in denial. Like,
I think that's what it is. I think it's like he's starting to get those glimpses of humanity being back on and wanting to be like a good person, but not really quite being there. Yeah. And instead of like putting in the work to prove himself, he's just like kind of wants everyone to like just treat him like they used to. Without actually like deserving it yet. Yep. I agree. Yeah. Which is unfortunate. He'll get there eventually, obviously, but like, yeah, it is just the situation where he just suddenly wants to be treated like part of the team again, but he's like not doing the work.
So clearly not
to deserve it. So. Yeah. At odds currently. Speaking of at odds is usually Caroline and her dad in this episode. Yep. At the Mystic Falls Hospital, Meredith is like meeting up with Caroline in the hallway. They're saying hi, that Elena connected them, yada yada. And Meredith mentions that Bill keeps threatening to get her medical license revoked. Obviously, if you remember from the last episode, Bill almost died from Tyler, like giving him the werewolf wounds, whatever, I don't know. And Meredith had to give him vampire blood, which Bill obviously does not like, as is what they talk about in this conversation. Basically, like, the whole crux of this conversation is to say that, like, and to hammer in, Bill has vampire blood in his system currently. Yes. And he hates vampires. It is, like, so strongly against his principles. Like, that is what this conversation is about. It's reminding us.
For sure.
And so Meredith mentions to Caroline that she signed his discharge papers last night just to get him out of there. So, like, you know, he's not even there anymore. Yeah. And Caroline is really surprised, saying, like, he never called. He didn't say anything to her. And Meredith acknowledges in this conversation that Caroline is also a vampire, saying, I make it my business to know who the vampires are in this town. Medical curiosity. Which I just thought was crazy that Meredith, based on, like, potentially nothing, somehow just knows that Caroline is a vampire. Yeah. And called her on it.
Yeah, which I was like, I don't know. I guess she is on the council, but I feel like the rest of the council seems to be in the dark.
It's definitely just a Meredith knows thing. Here's the thing. I could understand knowing Caroline because she's grown up in that town and she must not be going to the doctors anymore. Yeah, which is not a valid reason to be like, vampire. I haven't gone to the doctors in years. I hope they think I'm a vampire.
Who knows? Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know how she figured that out, but I guess she did. Yeah. And she says, like, I won't blab. Like, it's just, you know, like, I like to know, whatever. So I guess it's fine. But anyway, apparently none of the rest of the council knows. So Meredith leaves, goes on her way. That was the whole point of that scene. Yeah. And Caroline starts, like, walking along the hallway to find Elena, who was just kind of, like, waiting for her. Mm-hmm. And Elena says that was really fast. And Caroline says that her dad isn't there, that he was already discharged. And so they start walking down the hallway together, and she's saying that Meredith seemed really nice, by the way, a little intense, but I think it's sweet that you want to make sure Alaric's not dating a total psycho. Yeah. Which is really nice. And she starts, like, you know, pulling out her phone to call her dad, and she's, like, working on that, as Lena says, Alaric's my family, I have to look out for him, which I could cry at that line. I know. Like, it's so sweet. And it just makes me so sad knowing, like, where this season is going, where this episode is going. Even this episode, yeah. Yeah, like, it's just, it's so, especially with Jeremy gone right now, it's so hard to acknowledge that, like, really the only person Lena has currently is Alaric.
Is literally Alaric, yeah.
But anyway, Caroline's like on the phone and it's ringing and he's not answering. And suddenly she lowers it from her ear and she has this like kind of blank look on her face, like looking like she's like listening. And she says to Elena that she can hear her dad's phone. And then we hear through her like vamp hearing that the phone is like off in the distance somewhere. And she starts following it and she ends up in a medical supply room where she like starts walking around like all of the supplies. And in the back of the room, they find Bill's body sitting upright on the floor against a shelf, a knife in his chest, blood everywhere. Yep. Looks pretty dead. Like, he looks dead.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You don't really know exactly, but obviously Caroline is in shock. And she runs over to him and, like, gets on her knees in front of him and is yelling, like, please don't be dead. Please don't be dead. And she pulls the knife out of him and drops it on the floor. First of all, last thing you're supposed to do when somebody's... I don't know. Everyone's always doing that.
Yeah. Elena tries to do it later, too. And I'm like...
Yeah, Matt stops her, though.
Yeah.
But, yeah, she pulls out... Which, at this point, he's lost so much blood, it doesn't matter. But, so she pulls out the knife and drops it on the floor. And Elena's standing there. And they're, like... She's realizing, as Caroline's saying, don't be dead. She's looking at all the blood. She also looks at the knife and kind of clocks that it looks familiar, as we'll find out. And she says, Caroline, he has vampire blood in his system. As viewers, we know what that means. Suddenly, Bill wakes up.
Yep.
He's a vampire.
He's a vampire.
In transition.
Yeah. Yeah. Wild. Not much to say with that. We'll come back to...
There's a lot to say later.
Yeah. The repercussions of that will unfold.
Yeah.
But for right now, we got to go back to our girlies trying to figure out this coffin situation. Yeah. Abby is like looking at all of the drawings on the wall, and Bonnie asks her if this grimoire that she has, which is laid out on the sealed coffin, is the only grimoire that Abby kept. And Abby says it was the only one that she needed. And then she kind of asks about the drawings, and Bonnie tells her, you know, a little pointedly, it's a family history about a mother who loved her children so much she couldn't bear the thought that she might lose them. So she turned them into vampires. One of them is Klaus. And Bonnie's looking at the grimoire that's on top of the coffin, and she notices like a ripped out page. And Bonnie says, there's nothing in this that will help us. I've seen most of these spells, but she does ask about the torn out page. And Abby tells her it was the spell she used to seal Michael in the tomb, and she burned it and tried to get it out of her head, but it didn't work. Yeah. And then Abby is like looking at the grimoire, and on the page that was underneath the ripped out page, Abby is like, wait, do you see this? And there's like a little like
a symbol.
So, yeah,
sort of like
symbol.
A knot.
Yeah, it looks like a knot, like a figure eight kind of. And Abby points to it, and Bonnie's like, yeah, it's a sealing spell. We're trying to open something. And Abby's like, no, the symbol, it's a blood knot. It means to bind it, you need 2 generations, a bloodline, like 2 keys to a safety deposit box. So Bonnie realizes, so unbinding the knot would reverse the spell, unseal the coffin, if we did it together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so clearly this is why the witches had been leading Bonnie to go find Abby.
Yeah,
and that's going to be what it takes to actually get this coffin open.
Yeah. So we'll see their attempts at that later.
Some setup there.
Yep.
At the Salvatore boarding house, as usual, Damon is in Stefan's room, just like holding like a couple shirts in his hand, picking out an outfit for his brother. Stefan walks out of the bathroom like topless with a towel around him.
Yeah, looks like he just got out of the shower, but wearing pants and a belt. Like,
oh yeah, I forgot he did have pants on, not a towel. Yeah, it's so
he has
weird.
a towel like over his shoulder.
I
don't know, it's odd.
They just wanted him to come out shirtless and
of course.
It's the CW, let's be real. And so Damon is telling Stefan to get dressed, get ready, because they're going out. And Stefan's like, not interested.
Of course.
I'm not going anywhere. And Damon says, Elijah and I have scheduled a very old-fashioned sit-down with you and Klaus. And Stefan says Klaus won't make a deal. Mm-hmm. And Damon says he doesn't have to. They just need to buy time for their wicked witches to open the coffin. And so the brothers are bickering about the choices they've made and the hybrids and Elijah and blah, blah, blah. And Damon says that undaggering Elijah was smart, Stefan. After what Klaus did to him, he is in vengeance mode. It's perfect. And Stefan still thinks it's not smart to trust Elijah, especially after he literally screwed them over last time.
Yep,
literally, in season 2, he screwed them over and prevented them from killing Klaus. So why would they ever trust him?
Yep.
And Damon says, the way you've been acting, I trust him as much as I trust you. Got him. That is fair.
Yep, that is fair.
But yeah, Stefan's still being salty about the situation. And so Damon says, this is about me kissing Elena. Yeah. He realizes this is not about Elijah. This is not about
Klaus.
No,
of course not. It never is.
This is about Elena. And he says, just remember, if it wasn't for Klaus, you would have never become such a dick, and that kiss would have never happened. So get ready and get happy. We're going. And he specifically said, we're going to negotiate a fake truce, and I don't want your attitude screwing it up.
I love them.
That's a real sibling speech if I've ever heard one. That's just so, like, buck up and cheer up. I don't care that you're mad at me. We have to do this.
Yeah, put on a happy face. We're doing this.
Very sibling.
Yeah. Yeah, love them. I love the dinner party that's going to ensue.
I do too.
It's
My
so
favorite
good.
pairings of siblings.
Yeah, truly. But in the meantime, we have to check in with Bill, obviously. He's come back to life. They're in a room in the hospital now. And it's just Caroline and Bill at this point. And Caroline tells him that she compelled the nurse to stay out of this room so he'll be safe in here. And my headcanon is it's the same nurse from season 1.
Yeah.
And Bill says, you know, he realizes he's completely healed from the knife wound. And he says he needs to eat something. Obviously, hunger is kicking in. And Caroline tries to get him to, like, lay down, relax. But Bill says he's too wired. His pulse is racing. And he says it's the effect of my body wanting to transition. Again, he apparently knows everything.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't even need to be filled in.
Yeah.
But okay. And Caroline says, you know, maybe she can get Meredith to give him something. And Bill's like, she's done enough.
Yeah.
And Elena comes in at this point, says she called Liz. And she asks Bill if he saw who attacked him. And Bill says, no, he didn't. Like, he was just, like, sneaking out the back. Not sure why, but he was sneaking out the back and they came up behind him. And Caroline says, we'll figure this out, but we need to get him blood in the meantime. And Bill says he's not drinking blood. And Elena, like, gets a very concerned look on her face and says that he has to. If he doesn't feed and finish the transition into a vampire, he will die. And Bill says, I understand that, and that is what I'm prepared to do. Now get me out of this hospital. I smell blood everywhere.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. So Bill has decided that he's not going to complete the transition.
Yeah, he just walks out, and the girls are left there so shocked.
Yeah.
Poor
I know.
Caroline.
I know.
I'm just glad she has Elena through this.
Yes.
At least, like, I mean, we've talked about this before, where Elena is definitely the best person to have in this type of situation.
In any
like,
of these
situations.
situations, she's the person.
She
because
knows.
She's done it all.
She's experienced it all.
Yeah. Also, I thought Nina's acting during this scene was really good. Because I feel like she really looked concerned and, like, heartbroken for Caroline.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you convey that on your face, but she did.
Yeah, heartbreak for a friend is a hard, specific emotion to pull up.
Yeah, but she did. Yeah.
Then we have to jump back to the
More
Gilbert
Elena.
house where, it's nighttime. Alaric is putting his weapons on the table when Elena walks in, and he says that he's taking inventory because obviously multiple of their weapons have been used in murders lately. And he asks if she brought it, and it being the knife that killed Bill, which Elena has brought wrapped up in a cloth. He unwraps it and looks at it, and he's like, "Yep, it's a match for one of ours that are in the crawl space." And he says, meaning Meredith did know where it was. Yeah. Because that's exactly the weapons he had shown her the other night.
Yeah.
And Elena says, that doesn't mean she stole it. But he's, like, obviously, like, buying into this theory now.
He's fully on board.
And so he's showing her the other stakes, saying, like, these are from the loft. These are from the duffel in Damon's car, the ones that were used on Brian Walters. Which, again, I just have to say, I love Alaric for keeping the bag in Damon's car specifically. It never mentioned that Alaric has a car with the, like, weapons in it. It's always Damon's car, which I think is funny. Which makes more sense, admittedly. But still.
Yeah. I also love that they have the separate sets. They're like, these go here, these go here. Yeah.
This man is nothing if not prepared.
He really is, yeah.
But anyway, Elena points out that, like, the weapons that they're looking at are identical to the ones that killed Brian Walters, and Alaric fills in that, like, Damon's car was at the fundraiser that night when Brian was killed. And Elena points out that it doesn't make sense. Meredith was trying to save Bill Forbes' life. Why would she just turn around and murder him in the supply
it makes
closet?
no sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And Alaric's like, I don't know, but we can't ignore all of these facts. And so he says that what their next step is to give the weapons to the police, give all the evidence that they can, and that Elena should go be with Caroline. Yeah. And Elena says, I'm sorry, Rick, please be careful. And she gives him a sympathetic look before leaving. I really like that he's like, just go be with Caroline during all of this. Like, he's aware of how awful it is for it 18-year-olds have to lose their father, and
Yeah.
at least her BFF should be there with her for it.
Yeah. They're doing a good job towing the line with Alaric. Like,
They definitely are.
He still has his dark alcoholic, obviously serial killer vibe, but like, with respect to Elena, he's so good to her.
He's so good to her. Them. Yeah, and even with Damon, they're such good friends, and with Meredith, they're like getting along really well. Yeah. It's like, I've said this I think a couple of times before, like, I do think of Alaric as one of my really favorite characters, especially in season 3.
Yeah.
And it's why, like, at the end of the season, it's so hard.
So bad.
We'll get into that. I'm sure I will cry through that whole episode.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, so they're setting a lot of different factors up very, very well.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of setting factors up, maybe things not going so well.
Yeah, it is time for the Michelson Salvatore dinner party.
My favorite.
Damon and Stefan arrive. They do a little introduction. Klaus invites them in to discuss the terms of their agreement like civilized men. And they go in, and there's like a table set in like a dining room, and there's food on it, and there are 2 women like with serving trays, like ready to.
There's 2 by the fire, and then there's 2 by the doors. Like there's 4 women in total, and these matching gold dresses,
yes, the gold top. Like
it's so funny.
It's wild. But anyway, so they're going all out, and Elijah's like, better to indulge him.
No one else wants to do this except Klaus.
Yeah, it's very clear on everyone's face. No one's interested in this. And Stefan's like, I didn't come here to eat. He's being sassy.
Usual, yeah.
And Klaus says they can sit and eat, or he can reach down Stefan's throat and pull out his insides. His choice. So they all sit at the table.
Yeah.
And everyone except Stefan is eating, and they talk about that. And Damon tells him to eat. He thought they agreed to leave the grumpy Stefan at home, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, it was funny too.
And Klaus is like, isn't this nice? What a treat. And is this what you had in mind when you undaggered Elijah?
Yeah.
And Damon says, well, we knew how he felt about you, so I figured the more the merrier. And he winks at Elijah. I was like, I love this 4-person combination.
I know, they're a great pairing.
Yeah. And then Klaus uses this opportunity to kind of like indicate to Damon that he really thinks like he messed up in undaggering Elijah. He says, we've had our share of quarrels over the century, Klaus and Elijah have, but we always make it through. Stefan again brings up Rebecca and is like, where is she? Doesn't seem like you guys made it through. You're afraid to face her.
Yeah.
And Klaus says, like, if you're trying to get at the fact that I killed our mother, Elijah already knows. And Damon is like, come on, Stefan. Remember when you killed Dad? Like, let's dial back the judgment. And Stefan, of course, is just, again, he's just not having it. That's a theme through all of these scenes. And he's like,
yeah.
We're here to make a deal. I don't have to kiss his ass for 7 courses.
Elijah's probably like, who is this? Is this Stefan? This is a different man.
Yeah, literally, last time Elijah saw him, he was like the gallant knight trying to step in for Elena to save her life. Yeah,
trying to die instead of Jenna. Yeah. This is a different person. This is the candiest little brat you've ever seen. Like,
I know, a dig at every turn. I was like, I could say all the quotes because they're all funny, but funny. You can just watch the episode to get the real. Yeah. But so we'll come back to them.
Yeah. And Damon's like at the very end of the scene, he's just like pacing stuff. He says,
pace yourself. Yeah, like we have a long evening ahead of us.
Yes, they do. We'll spend a lot of, basically the whole episode is like this dinner party. So
yeah, pretty much.
It is like gonna extend the whole thing because there's also a lot of things going down very quickly at other places. So it's a very like short time frame sort of episode. Because of course the other thing we have to deal with is Bill Forbes died. He's dead. Yeah. So at the Forbes residence, Elena and Caroline are now sitting out on the front porch. It's dark out. The like street lights are really low. It's so moody. I really liked this setup. I was like, this is so unique. I like the way it looks and feels. Yeah. And Elena asks Caroline if she's heard from Tyler, but she says no, which I was like, this is crazy. Where did Tyler go?
Yeah, where did he go?
He just left. But yeah, Caroline says she's like left him all sorts of messages and she can't find him. So Caroline pivots the conversation, obviously, because that's not a great thing to talk about. And so she asks, does Alaric really think that Dr. Fell did it? And Elena says, like, he doesn't really know. And so Caroline asks Elena what she thinks. And she just says, I wish the girl that Alaric liked wasn't in the middle of this. He deserves to be happy. But yeah, she looks guilty, which is what I told your mom. Yeah. And Caroline looks back at the door and is very obviously like thinking about what's going on and is very like she's grappling with a lot right now. And she says that her mom's in there with her dad right now and that they haven't been in the same room this long since she was 10 years old.
Yeah.
And Caroline asks, is there any chance that Tyler did it? And Elena's like really shocked by that. And she's like, no, Caroline, no. But Caroline says, like, he's sired and he does everything he's told by Klaus. It's not impossible.
Yeah.
But Elena says, like, no, I don't think Tyler did it. And Caroline says, I can't just let my father die. You know, I'm going to force him to feed is what she ends up saying. Like, she's just, there's no way to just, like, lay back and accept this, basically. So she's willing to, like, literally force him to turn into a vampire, the thing he hates. And Elena just looks, like, very plainly at her and says, he doesn't want to, Caroline. The only thing your dad has in this is his choice. And Caroline at this point starts to cry and says, I hated him so much for what he did to me, so much. And now all I want to do is save his life. I'm going to cry.
I know,
Elena's,
these two.
These two, because the next thing Elena says is, of course you do. He's your dad. And there's such like a long, sensitive silence. And it's definitely a reminder that they're thinking the same thing. Elena's dad is already dead. And so and now they're going to have that to connect about. Yeah. And Caroline acknowledges this, that this is what they're both thinking about by saying, what was the hardest part for you when you lost your dad? And Elena says, realizing all the things that he wouldn't be there for, the things that you know, you just need your dad for.
Yeah.
And Elena scoots over to Caroline and holds her in her arms, and she starts crying, and they're just kind of like sitting there for a moment. And then suddenly we see Matt walk up to the house, and both the girls like sit up and like look at him. And Matt says, hey. Caroline says, hey. And then she jumps up and she hugs him, and then she really starts like sobbing as he's holding her. Say what you want about Matt Donovan, but he shows up.
I know. I was like, do I like Matt in this episode? I don't know. All of his moments are actually very solid in this episode.
I know, which is nice because I feel like we've had some, like 11. We were making fun of Matt so hard. It's so funny in 11. He's just ridiculous. But he's so sweet in this episode. It really pays back.
He's redeemed himself.
Yeah.
No. I know.
But this scene kills me. I mean, you can hear it in my voice now. And Rachel, if you're watching the video, you can see it. I'm like tearing up a little bit just talking about it. But like watching the scene, I was sobbing. I was crying.
No, it's very
sad.
sad.
This is so something about like these teenage girls, best friends, having to acknowledge both losing their fathers, one having already lost and one just literally in the process of losing him. It's just so devastating.
Yeah, and just the tragedy of it is Bill's choice, and there's literally nothing Caroline can do about it. It's almost worse.
Just sit there and watch it happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's almost worse than if he had, hadn't died with vampire blood in his system, and he just had died.
It just gotten murdered.
Yeah, you're just waiting.
Yeah, because then you could kind of act with like anger, like she could be like, who did this? Like you can launch into that, the distraction instead of the grief. Yeah. But in this situation, she's just kind of forced to sit there and let it simmer, which sucks because she actually gets the same situation with her mom.
Oh my God, yeah.
So, whereas Elena had the opposite of just immediate tragic death of both of her parents. And Caroline has the real slow burns of having to watch them die. Yeah. Which
so true.
is really awful.
Caroline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back into the lighthearted.
I was going to say, let's go to something a little comedic.
Yeah, thank goodness. They paced this well. They did. From the tragic to the hilarious.
They really did. So we go back to the little dinner party, and we immediately see Elijah asking Stefan, where is the lovely Elena?
This is my favorite scene. Yeah, where's Elena?
Yeah, where's the lovely Elena tonight? And Stefan says, I don't know, ask Damon. And Klaus laughs.
Yeah, he's like, he drops his head into his hands and is fully laughing at them. And Elijah like holds his hands up in defense, like, what? Yeah, what did I do?
He doesn't know. And Klaus says that he's like, you've missed so much. There's trouble in paradise. And Stefan says, one more word about Elena and this dinner's over. And Klaus smiles and puts a finger to his lips.
Yeah, like he's
like
shushing.
Like he's I'm not going to say
I won't talk about it.
I won't say a word.
So funny. This is my favorite scene in this episode. It's so funny.
Same. I love Joseph Morgan. I mean, I love him.
I say it every scene.
I know.
I love Joseph so much.
He's putting everything into this character. But Damon says it's best to put Elena in the do not discuss pile. And Klaus says, you're probably right, but the allure of the...
Then he talks about it anyway.
He goes into a whole thing. The rest of the scene is about it. And Klaus says, you're probably right, but the allure of the betrothed doppelganger is still so strong. What do you say, brother? Let's tell him about Tatia.
Yeah.
Finally getting some of the background on, not the first betrothed doppelganger, but, you know, the one around during the originals era.
Yeah.
And Elijah's like, why would we discuss matters long since resolved? Elijah's obviously, you know, he's the polite one. He's like, we gotta steer clear of this.
Well, his whole demeanor is so interesting this whole episode. He's very calm and quiet and listening. And it's definitely, because as a first-time viewer, you're supposed to kind of wonder, where's his allegiance? What is he doing?
That's true, yeah. And I think Elijah's kind of trying to decide for himself. He's trying to suss things out, yeah. But anyway, Klaus is like, given their shared affection for both Elena and Catherine, I feel like they'd want to know. And Damon is like, please tell, like, please go on. We're not going anywhere. And Elijah does start by telling the story. And he says, when they first settled here in Mystic Falls, there was a girl named Tatia. She was beautiful. Everyone wanted to be her suitor, even though she'd already had another child. And no one loved her more than Klaus. And Klaus interjects and says, well, I'd say there was one who loved her at least as much. And Stefan is kind of surprised. He's like, wait, you both love the same girl? Like, kind of, I think, really getting a reality check on history repeating itself.
Oof, yeah.
And Elijah just continues with the story saying, you know, Esther, their mother, was a powerful witch. She wanted to end their feud over Tatia, so she used her blood in creating them as vampires. And you know, he adds, like, Tatia wouldn't make a decision between the two of us. So for a time, Klaus and Elijah grew apart, and harsh words were traded. We even came to blows. And, you know, he just kind of leaves it at that. But Klaus says, in the end, we realized the sacred bond of family. Mm-hmm. And Elijah says, family above all. Mm-hmm. And Klaus kind of repeats family above all. And they cheers. They clink their glasses together. And yeah.
Interesting. And then Stefan and Damon, like, they both exchange a look, and they're both like, you could tell their jaws are like tight, like they're like, they're both working their jaws, so they just kind of like look at each other. I love this scene though.
Me too.
I love this info dump about Tatia and the backstory of Elijah and Klaus. It's something that is only like talked about in this scene in Vampire Diaries, but you get to see in originals. So if you haven't watched originals and you like this kind of stuff, watch originals. Like, you fully get to see it. Nina pops into originals to play Tatia.
So good.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I don't know, it's interesting you get like hints of this stuff in season 2, but I really like how they actually pull out the full parallel going on here between the Michelsons and the Salvatores. And yeah, it's something I find very interesting. I did a whole edit about it if you haven't watched. Oh my god,
yeah, that's what's playing in the back of my mind.
Yeah, we've got an edit on our channel of
it's so good.
You get the gun from Chicago or whatever. So go check that out because it's pretty fun. There's so many good parallels between the relationships.
No, they're so similar. Like, their relationships are so similar. That's why the originals was so successful. It's like, we're building on this, like, the strength of brotherhood and the bond between these two brothers, but making it even better.
Yeah, exactly. So love this scene. Love
good.
The Michelson Salvatore dinner.
Yeah, really, truly.
But from there,
other families.
Yeah, my least favorite family currently is the Bennetts, unfortunately, which are usually my faves. At the old Lockwood cellar cave situation, Abby and Bonnie are still like working over the coffin. They're holding hands on either side, chanting a spell, and like Bonnie drops Abby's hands, pulls away like all angry, and is like, "You're not even trying." She says, "We've been at this for over an hour," and Abby just like explains away, saying the spirits are angry with me for leaving you. They don't want me to have my powers again. But Bonnie is dead set. She's like, "I had these dreams for a reason. They wanted me to go to you for a reason. The spirits want you to help. It is you who is not trying, who doesn't want to get it open." And then she gets serious with her, and Bonnie says, "You know, Dad never talked about you, and neither did Grams. I had no memories of you, so you know what I used to pretend? That you were dead. It was easier to do that than to wonder if you'd ever come back, when you'd ever come back.
Yeah.
And why you didn't come back."
Yeah, this is tough. I mean, I'm glad Bonnie said it. She needed to air it.
And Abby deserves to hear that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a terrible thing to have to admit to and to have to experience and feel. And obviously it makes Abby really upset. She starts tearing up.
Of course.
Again, obviously terrible to hear, even if it's deserved. Yeah. And she says, "There's no way I can tell you how sorry I am for what I did." And Bonnie says, "Yes, there is. You can help me." And she places her hands over the coffin again, reaching for Abby. And again, Abby takes her hands and they start doing the spell. And this time the candles like immediately start flaring like huge. And there's this deep rumbling. And, you know, all you can tell the spell is like working this time. The spell is spelling.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the candles all return to normal and everything goes quiet and back to normal. And Bonnie goes to open the coffin and it sort of like rattles more than it did, but it doesn't open. It's still locked. But Bonnie seems pretty excited still, pretty happy with the results. She says that it almost worked.
Yeah.
And so she's going to leave to go call Damon to say that it's almost worked. They need more time. Which Bonnie leaves and I was like, why did she have to tell him that? Just open it. I don't know.
Yeah, what?
Feels
Just
like
keep
a waste
doing
of
it.
time. Yeah. Damon, we've almost got it.
Yeah.
Why would you want to know that? But anyway, this gives us the opportunity to have Abby left alone in the cave, and she's standing there by herself when suddenly she hears a thud behind her, and she turns around and looks at the coffin and walks over to it, and she starts to reach for it to open it, and suddenly the lid flies open by itself, the candles start flaring huge, Abby gasps, and then it cuts away.
Yep.
So big dramatic, the coffin's open.
Coffin
It actually did work.
Yeah, it finally worked. And also finding out that it almost worked. We see Damon getting that message from Bonnie saying, like, getting closer and need more time. And Elijah's like, let's move this evening along and, like, actually get to talking about what the deal between them is, the fake truce. Yeah. And Damon's like, it's simple. Klaus gets his coffin back. In exchange, all of the originals leave Mystic Falls forever. Me, Stefan, and Elena live happily ever after. No grudges.
Yeah.
Elijah's like, that's fair. And Klaus is like, I don't think you understand. Like, Elena's doppelganger blood ensures that I'll always have more hybrids to fight those who oppose me, and I'll never leave her behind because of that reason. And Klaus gets up and starts to pace, and he says, you know, let's say I do leave Elena here under, like, the Salvatore brothers' protection. What then? How long before one of you turns her into a vampire? Or worse, how long before she dies caught between your feuding? You see, each one of you truly believes that you're the one that can protect her. And that is simply a delusion.
I love this.
I love his delivery of all of this. Yeah, the hard truth that they haven't faced at all.
Yeah. Yeah, which is the next line, is the really hard truth.
Yes. Klaus goes on to say, gentlemen, the worst thing for Elena Gilbert is the two of you.
Yeah. He got him. They deserved that a little
really
bit.
They needed this reality check.
Yeah, because it's true.
No, it's so true. It's so true.
I mean, Klaus actually is probably the worst thing, but...
Well, yeah. Klaus is no better than them, but... Yeah. But Damon, like, kind of weakly smiles and looks at Stefan. He's like, I'm going to go get some air. And Elijah's like, let me deal with this. And he follows Damon out.
Yeah.
And Klaus and Stefan are left alone.
Obviously, Klaus's ideal situation.
Yeah, I was going to say Klaus is like, thank God. And Klaus says all this talk has made him thirsty. So he, like, beckons one of the women over.
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you say, Stefan? Can I interest you in a little after-dinner drink? And Klaus bites the girl's neck and drinks her blood.
He's so funny for that.
He's wild.
Immediately hitting on Stefan as soon as everyone else leaves the room is how I'm reading this. I don't care if anyone doesn't agree with me.
No, I agree. I so fully agree.
It's so funny.
Good.
Immediately, like, let me get my boyfriend back.
Yes, like, let's
if
share
I make
this
him a
girl.
Rippah back, then maybe he'll love me again. Their vibe to me.
This is what Stefan should have offered, I'll follow you around again if you let this go.
Yeah. And then he should have.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's just too far gone. But anyway, speaking of too far gone, actually, at the Gilbert house, Elena and Matt are walking up to the house, and Elena's thanking him for walking her home. And Matt asks her, are you doing okay? Like, this must be a lot for you. Obviously, this would so bring up Elena losing her own parents, watching her friend lose hers. And Elena brushes it off, just saying, like, we've all lost a lot. And Matt says, it's this town, it's messed up, none of us should have to live this way. I love that Matt keeps this rhetoric all the time. He's always saying stuff like this. But I also think this is interesting based on, what's going to happen at the end of the season. And so they end up walking into the house together, and Elena tries to turn on the light, but it doesn't come on. She's, like, flicking it, and it's just not going. And they guess that the electricity must be out. So they walk through to the kitchen, and Elena opens a cupboard, grabs some flashlights for them, and they start looking around for candles. But when they get into the kitchen, Elena's, moving the flashlight around and spots a huge puddle of blood in front of the sink. and immediately is like, shocked, obviously, like, what happened here? And so they start kind of following it back towards the hallway where they're seeing like bloody handprints
everywhere. It looks like a massacre.
It looks like an absolute massacre. They like grab knives in the kitchen before they go upstairs.
I love the shot. They both grab them out of like the knife thing.
They've seen Scream.
Yeah, it's so good.
And so they've got their knives at the ready and flashlights. They're walking back through like the entrance where they were, which I was like, how'd they not spot that the first time? But okay, I know it's supposed to be dark, but unfortunately they chose to not light it that dark, so they would have seen it, but whatever. So they're walking, and then this is where there's like just the whole wall. Every picture frame is like turned upside down, like bloody handprints everywhere. It is literally like a high school horror nights, like Halloween show or something. And so they go up the stairs, and at the top of the stairs, they find Alaric is laying in a doorway with a knife through his stomach. And Elena obviously gasps and rushes over to him and like drops down next to him. And she goes to pull out the knife, but Alaric is like screaming in pain or whatever. Mm-hmm. And Matt stops her, saying that he's just lost way too much blood. They need to call 911. And Elena grabs Alaric's face and is kind of trying to wake him up, asking who did this to him. And he's awake at this point, like obviously has lost a lot of blood, and is saying like he doesn't know, he doesn't remember. And it's basically just turning into complete panic now as Elena is yelling, like, he's lost a lot of blood, Matt. And they're, like, both, like, freaking out.
Yeah.
And Alaric tells Elena, you have to kill me. Just crazy. And so she grabs his hand, and she sees that he's still wearing his Gilbert ring. And she realizes, like, what he's trying to get to. And she tells Matt to hang up the phone. And she explains to Matt, I am the doppelganger. We don't know that who did this was supernatural if he dies, but I'm supernatural, so he will come back if I kill him. Yeah. And so she takes the knife that she had brought, and she stabs him in the chest, and he dies, obviously.
Yeah, it looks like it's like basically in the heart. And
the prompt.
Yeah, and Matt tries to stop her at first. He's like, Elena, no, this is messed up.
He's like, this is so wrong.
Yeah, but she just goes for it.
Yeah, well, she stresses. She's like, he's dying, Matt. There's no other option.
Yeah.
Like, she's experienced 911 does not work anymore.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true.
So she kills him, which I was just like, the writers, after the whole dead dad reminder, this was really messed up to make Elena do this to her kind of de facto dad at this point. I think of him more as an uncle, but still father figure.
Me too, but yeah, definitely like a father-like figure for sure. I know, this was crazy. But also, we know, like, at this point, us rewatchers, Alaric did this to himself. Like, how did he even get up the stairs?
I don't even know.
He was like, it's not enough to stab myself. I have to sell it. Like,
yeah.
I have to sell
and the bloody handprints. They should have known it was fake just on how much of a show there was. I'm just imagining Dark Alaric, like, putting his hands in the, the puddles of blood and then pressing him to the wall, going and getting more, pressing it into his chest, like, getting as much as he can to like make his little art show.
No, literally, it's wild. I was like, okay, Alaric.
Yeah, it was a little too far.
But sure. But anyway, we'll leave them there. Another little like a lighter scene.
Yeah.
That's obviously a very dark scene.
Yeah.
The amount of blood was crazy. But a little bit lighter, we see back at the dinner party.
A little bit later, starting out with a death at the dinner party.
Well, that's true. Yes, the girl is obviously dead. I mean, we knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Anyway, she falls to the floor. Klaus is like, aged to perfection. Drops her to the floor.
They really had to overcorrect after the Caroline episode. They were like, we need to make him look more villainous again. He's looking too baby girl. Make him kill somebody.
No, they really were. So anyway, Stefan is like, well, I guess the only reason you agreed to this meeting, Klaus, was to drive a wedge between me and Damon. And Klaus is like, no, you're doing that well enough on your own.
Yeah, you don't need my help.
Which is true. And Klaus goes on to say, because of Elena, you're going to lose your brother, and you only have yourself to blame.
Hard truth.
True. And at this point, Damon and Elijah re-enter the room, and Damon says, what do you say, Klaus? It's time for you to put something on the table. Like, we've made our offer, now you counter. Mm-hmm. And Klaus says he offers Elena's future happiness. What she needs right now is to be rid of you lot. I love when he says you lot.
I love any like English terms or like ways of speaking.
Yeah, and he says Elena needs to fall in love with a human, maybe the nice blonde football player.
Yeah.
It's like, Matt Donovan?
Really? Yeah.
And Klaus says, yeah, why not? They'll marry, live a long, fruitful life, and pop out a perfect family. And Stefan realizes, to continue the Petrova bloodline, so every few hundred years, Klaus will have a new doppelganger, and therefore will never run out of hybrids. And Klaus says, consider it a small return on my investment in her well-being.
Yeah.
See, after you hand me back the coffin, I'll ensure her safety for the rest of her natural life. You know this is what's best for her. And Klaus gets up and walks towards Stefan, and asks if they have a deal. Mm-hmm. And Stefan walks over to Klaus, and Damon is like, what are you doing? And Klaus, goes to shake Stefan's hand to seal the deal. And Stefan grabs it to shake it and says, nice try, Klaus, but no deal, of course. And Klaus, at this point, breaks Stefan's arm, kicks him, and holds his arm, into the fireplace. And
burning
his hand. And Damon, tries to rush for Stefan and to, break this up. But Elijah intercepts him and pushes him up against the wall.
Yeah.
Again, kind of making us think Elijah's really on Klaus's side.
Yeah.
And Damon is like, what are you doing? And Klaus continues to hold his arm in the fire. And Stefan's arm is burnt at this point.
Yeah.
And Damon yells at him to stop. And Klaus says, bring me my coffin before I burn him alive. And Damon says, I'll go get it. And Klaus tells Elijah to go with Damon to keep him honest. And when Elijah returns, he'll make good on his promise to him. And he'll hand over their family.
Yeah, interesting.
Which I feel like is enough to tell Elijah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. We're not doing this.
And again, Elijah's just very with the blank faces. When he pins Damon, when he looks at Klaus here, he is so poker faced through this whole episode.
Definitely.
And I think it's like you said before, it's the kind of trying to clock what's going to happen here. Is Klaus changed at all? Is he still the way he was
still
before?
Being this way? Yep.
So yeah, it's definitely an interesting dynamic of catching all the vibes.
Yeah, for sure.
But of course, from the fun scenes, we got to go back into the sad scenes. This one's gonna get me too.
I know.
So at the Forbes house, Bill is in Caroline's room, and Caroline comes in, and they say hi to each other. And Bill points to a trophy on Caroline's dresser saying, your first day at regionals. And she reminisces that she was afraid to join the squad, but he talked her into it. And he says, you had nothing to be afraid of. You were so much better than all those other girls. He's the most supportive dad in that moment.
Yeah.
And Bill slowly sits down on Caroline's bed, and she asks him how he's feeling, and he says that he's tired. And she asks if she can get him anything, or maybe call Stephen for him. Of course, if you know from the last episode, Stephen was his partner. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they were just, I guess you couldn't get married potentially probably at this time, unfortunately.
No, probably, no, I don't think you could.
So yeah, I guess just long-term partner. And so she asks, if she can call Stephen, and he says that actually they haven't really been talking that much. But he asks Caroline to call him when everything's over and the dust has settled, which is crazy to me.
Oh my God. I was thinking about that too.
Have you ever had to call someone and tell them that someone they love is dead? It's awful. I cannot imagine asking your 18-year-old daughter to call your partner and tell them that you're dead, even if they're broken up or estranged. That's awful. Make Liz do it at least.
I know. I was thinking that too. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he would ask this of her. But
yeah, I remember watching this as a kid and when it came out, I was a teenager and being like, it sounds like
anything of it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's just a little request, just give him a call. Yeah. That's he's just giving her a small task. Now I'm like, that's a huge task. That's so much to put on her. So yeah, I thought that was crazy personally, but
it is. No, it is.
I don't know. I guess whatever.
I thought the same thing.
I'm sure Caroline appreciates to have something to do. But
yeah, I guess that's probably true.
That's a big something.
Yeah.
And Caroline nods. And so at this point, she kneels in front of her dad and takes his hands. And she says, I know you think you've made your choice on this, but you can change your mind. You are strong enough to handle being a vampire. And she says, you're the strongest person that I know. And he says, my strength is all in my beliefs. He says that becoming a vampire is wrong. People aren't supposed to cheat death. It's just what I believe. Please respect that. And Caroline lets go of his hands and stands up, starting to cry, obviously so offended and angry at this point, saying, how could you hate who I am so much? And he gets up and he gently grabs her face. And at this point, Liz has appeared in the doorway, kind of listening in. And Bill says, I don't hate you. I love you. And you're strong, you're beautiful, you're good. And even after everything that has happened to you, you are exactly what your mother and I had hoped you'd grow up to be. Now Caroline is, of course, really, really crying.
Sobbing, begging him not to leave. Yeah,
and she's just saying over and over again, please don't leave me, Daddy. Please don't leave me, please. And Caroline, I don't know, it's crazy. She's really the one selling it like this for me.
Oh, she definitely
obviously,
is.
Like, we don't care about Bill. I don't like Bill at all. I don't care if he
I
dies.
hate Bill. Yeah, whatever.
But I'm like crying while watching this scene, and because even as I'm describing this, I'm like, I don't really care. But as I'm watching it, I was really like crying over him, because I'm not really crying over him. I'm crying for her, and that she has to go through this. You know, it's like a scene that we can talk about, and I feel nothing about because I don't feel anything about him dying. But as you're watching, you're just so moved by her, and she sells it so well that it's hard to not feel emotionally about the scene. And at this point, Bill hugs Caroline, and he's kind of petting her hair and shushing her. And he says, parents aren't supposed to outlive their children, Caroline. It's okay. And he kisses the top of her head as she's continuing to cry. And he looks over at Liz, who's also getting like teary-eyed at this point too. And he says, this is life. This is what it means to be human. Which, I don't know. You're making a sweet face, and I do think it's kind of sweet when you think about it. But I kind of eye rolled. I was like, don't preach the human stuff at this point. Like,
I mean, I didn't. That's probably how Bill means it. But I chose to not read it like that. I was like, it is very human to like, you know, lose a parent and all these things.
That's true.
Like like everything else disregarded, that statement, I'm like, that's very sweet. But yes, I feel like Bill does in his last words have this undertone of like, I'm like kind of like a self-righteousness. Like, I'm human. Yeah.
I don't know. And I get that. I don't know. I just have a hard time anytime the show kind of dives into this stuff for me, because I just personally don't relate to this feeling of these sad moments being human and that inherently being emotional and good or something. Like, that doesn't resonate to me personally. I'm like, where's the beauty in this, Bill? Like, where's the, I don't know. I'm like, that's to me not the beauty of humanity. But I think it's better when they launch into like the spirit, and how even though you could like die, you'll do it anyway, because that's what it means to be human, to sacrifice for the ones you love. And
that's true. I mean, that's
just being
definitely
like, your dad dies, that's so human. I was like, well, I don't know, it's not human to me. It is human, but it's the human part I don't want to like experience.
It's not something that feels like like very
joyous,
good or powerful or something. Nothing like that. The one that really in the scene had me rolling my eyes was Bill was like, my strength is in my beliefs.
Yeah, that got me too.
Shut up, okay. Bill. Like, I kind of respect his choice in that I think it's very interesting to get to see someone not complete the transition.
Yeah, I'm glad they did this.
Like, I love that for the plot. So I like this whole thing with Bill in that sense. Yeah. But I was like, shut the fuck up, Bill. I was like,
about your beliefs and humanity.
Come on.
The superiority of it all is, is deafening.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But
anyway, I did like that line, but more of like on a surface level way.
I
like,
know.
Without,
I think it's because I'm thinking about everything too much that I'm just like, ugh.
Taking it out of the Bill context. I like it. But
yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, but anyway, Stefan's arm is still on fire, so we got to go back there.
Yeah,
Klaus is still holding Stefan's arm in the fireplace, and Stefan is like, go ahead, kill me. I know you're going to do it when Elijah brings the coffins anyway. Such indignant Stefan. And Klaus pulls Stefan out of the fireplace and is like, you really have given up, haven't you? Like, where's the fight? Where's the Ripper? Like, trying to get him back to, his boyfriend. And he kind of like pushes Stefan, and Stefan pushes him back. And then suddenly Elijah and Damon come back into the room with one of the like women that was the gold top women. Yeah, and she has like a tray. And Klaus asks Elijah like why he hasn't left yet. And Elijah says, where are your manners, brother? We haven't done dessert. And Elijah pulls like this fabric that's like covering the cover off the tray. Yeah, he pulls it off, and like it shows there are 2 silver daggers on the tray. And Klaus is like, what have you done?
Immediately like terrified eyes. He's like fearing for his life.
I was thinking about this scene when you were talking about at the beginning of the episode, like Klaus's fear when it comes to his family. Instantly afraid. And Elijah is like, what have you done? I've learned to not trust your vulgar promises, Klaus. We're doing this on my terms now. And Cole enters the room.
Yes. I love him so much.
He gives his not American accent, long-time brother.
Yeah.
Real ones will know what I'm referencing.
Yes.
But Cole says, long-time brother. And Klaus starts to back away, very afraid.
Yeah. Saying his name so we know who he is,
yes,
too.
Yeah, saying that one's Cole. And then Finn suddenly appears and grabs the dagger and stabs Klaus through the hand. And Klaus, again, yells, Finn, don't. So we know which one he is. And then he turns to run away. And one we don't need a little named introduction for. He runs right into Rebecca, who stabs him with the dagger and says, this is for our mother.
Yes.
She pulls the dagger out and Klaus falls back into Cole's arms and Klaus or Cole like holds him back.
Yeah, like restricts him, just like fully stuck.
Yeah, basically holding him captive. And Elijah looks to Damon and Stefan and says, you're free to go. This is family business.
Yes.
And they obviously like Stefan
they
and Damon
hike out of there
like out there like we gotta go.
We don't want to be in the middle of this right now.
Yeah. I love this. I love that they're all back. I love each of their outfits indicating like the various eras they were decorated.
Including Rebecca in her homecoming dress.
I know. It's like she get the 2010s era.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I take it back about the last scene being my favorite scene. This is my favorite scene.
This is it. This is so
This one's so good. Finally, all of the originals all together, all assembled. It's like the weirdest like Mod Podge group of Avengers you've ever seen.
Yes.
It's so funny.
Random group of people we'll really see. But
I'm so excited. I love them so much. It's finally beginning.
Yeah.
I love it. Anyway, we have to finish the sad stuff first.
Let's wrap up the sad. We'll get
wrap
to
up
the
the sad first. Well, it doesn't really get
well,
happy again after this, but happy for us because we enjoy things. But yes, at the Forbes house, of course, we're seeing Bill's presumably now dead body lying peacefully in Caroline's bed, and Caroline is clutching his hand, crying, and Liz enters the room with tears in her eyes, and Caroline and Liz like exchange a look, and clearly like Caroline looks like she's trying to accept like her dad is dead. Like clearly that is what has happened.
Yeah.
Which short scene, but I just have to ask, why did Bill have to die in Caroline's bed?
I thought that too. I was like, what? This is weird.
Put him on the couch. Put him in a guest bed anywhere else. How is she ever going to sleep in that room ever again?
It's so odd.
Liz's bed at least would be a little better. I don't know. But Caroline's bed, I was like, that was not the place to put him.
I know. I was like, this is weird.
There's definitely a chance Caroline insisted, like, wanting to make him comfortable or something. But because we don't see him, like, it's just weird. I wouldn't put him anywhere else.
Agreed. Yeah.
But whatever. Anyway, moving on. At the Gilbert house, Elena is sitting on the floor next to Alaric's body, and Matt comes up the stairs and kneels down next to her, asking if Alaric is still out, which clearly he is. Elena nods, and she says that Caroline called and her dad died. And Matt's brows like furrow really quickly, and he drops his head, clearly looking very disappointed and sad for Caroline. And Elena asks Matt, will you stay with me until he wakes up? And Matt says, of course. And Elena says, I can't lose any more family. And Elena starts crying, and Matt takes her into his arms and is holding her, and he kind of like rubs her arm. It's so sweet. And I'm crying again as I'm watching this part for Elena.
I was like, oh, I ship them for a minute. And like also, it just makes you think about how alone Elena really is. With Jeremy gone now.
I know. And again, it feels like this like triple dad gut punch with Elena's actual dad being brought up, Caroline's dad dying, and now Alaric, who's this father figure, dying. I was like, I'm glad I don't have any like dead dad issues, because if any of you do, I'm sure this is a really hard episode to watch.
Oh, for sure.
Because this is just like, they
There's
lay
a
it
lot.
on thick. But anyway, going into more fun slightly of the boys fighting as they always do.
Yes. Yeah, David and Stefan walked right out of that house and straight to the old Lockwood cellar. But right now they're in the woods.
Yeah.
On their way. And Stefan tells Damon he was right to undagger Elijah. It was a smart move. And Damon is impressed that Stefan is actually acknowledging his job well done. And he says Stefan's going soft. And Stefan is like, so I guess I shouldn't thank you for saving me from Klaus. And Damon's like, shut up. You don't get to thank me until I pay you back for all the times you've saved me. And Stefan says, Damon could have left him there. Klaus would have just killed him and you would have had Elena all to yourself. Mm-hmm. Which again, this just read to me as Stefan really doesn't get Damon. Like, he still really doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
But anyway, Damon's phone vibrates at this point, and it's Elena calling. And he pointedly, like, ignores the call. Like, not even just puts it in his pocket, but, like, presses like end.
Yeah, feels like he's trying to like make a point basically.
Yeah, it does. But he says he didn't do that because Stefan is there. And Stefan, like, they pause for a beat. And Stefan says, I love her, Damon. And they pause for another little beat. And Damon says, so do I.
Yeah.
And Damon kind of looks at him and walks away.
Yeah. They've finally entered like the crossroads of being on sort of even grounds with Elena in a way.
Yeah.
Where they both have this like equal right to her and this like reason to not be with her and reasons to be with her.
Yes,
like
yeah.
it feels like something the show's been building to since it started.
Definitely.
And it's finally there of like they both have this chemistry with her. They both have these like history things with her. And it's getting to a point where she's going to have to choose.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think at this point it is fully like in her hands. Like it has to be the one to make the decision.
Stefan still has to like do some rebounding.
Yeah, he hasn't come back from driving her off Wickery Bridge
but
just yet.
Clearly he wants to start to. And clearly like he's starting to think about that and is like I think aware that he wants to fight for her.
Yes. And I think we know he will start doing that.
And that's going to be so present in the next episode. I mean, oh my gosh, the three of them in the next episode will have so much to say.
Iconic. I'm going to go watch your edit after this.
Yeah. But yeah, so much to say about the three of them. And then finally being at that crossroads. And it will just continue to be the theme. Literally the rest of the season. It won't get paid off until the last episode. So that's enough for now.
And even then.
Yeah. At the Forbes house, Elena's on the phone with Liz, who is saying that Meredith was actually in surgery and has like ironclad alibi. There's absolutely no way that she could have been the one to attack Alaric. Yeah. And they're basically like, okay, don't know like who could have done this then. Yep. Back at square one, no suspects. And Liz says that the attack on Alaric makes this the third member of the Founders Council who's been attacked. Yeah. And they've literally just cleared their only suspect. So again, ground zero, they don't know where they are. Yeah. Suddenly we hear Alaric wake up and we see like Elena kind of rushing over to him as he's like coughing and sitting up, and she hangs up the phone and she grabs Alaric's hand, obviously comforting him, bringing him back to life. Yeah. So all set there. Yeah. At the old Lockwood cellar cave, Damon and Stefan have finally made it there, and they get into the tunnels, and Damon is saying, let's hope Big Witch and Little Witch got the coffin open. I would not be happy if my name was Big Witch. I would be like, no, thank you. No. But Stefan says, something's got to make this night worthwhile. And then they spot Bonnie on the ground unconscious in front of them. And Stefan checks and says she's still breathing. And then Damon spots Abby like inside of the cave and says that he can hear her still breathing too. And they notice that the coffin is wide open and it's empty. And Damon says, well, that's not going to do us any good. Whatever was in it is gone. Cut to what was in it.
Yeah, we'll see where that ended up. Back at Klaus's mansion, dealing with all of his siblings, we see Rebecca's like, I like what you've done with the place. She throws a vase into a painting.
I laughed so hard. I love her so much for that.
She's crazy.
I like what you've done with the place. Breaks everything.
You know what? And Klaus is like, I wanted it to be for all of us. A place we could call home.
Yeah, he's so teary-eyed.
He is. A place we could all be a family, so none of us would have to be alone again. And Elijah's like, you're right. None of us will be. And then Finn tells Klaus that they're leaving him behind. Mm-hmm. And Rebecca says they're leaving him right after she kills that doppelganger wench. Then he'll really be alone. Always and forever. Throwing their words right back in his face. And Klaus says if they run, he'll hunt them all down. And Elijah's like, and then you'll become the thing you hate. Our father, Michael. Yeah.
And they're all like lined up at this point. The four of them, it's like it's very versus Klaus versus the siblings.
Yes. Yeah, they're all like standing in a line. I'm like, this is what I'm here for. Yeah. I love it. And Klaus yells at them that he's the hybrid. He can't be killed. He has nothing to fear from any of them. And Elijah tells them that he will when they have his coffin. Mm-hmm. And they hear a door open, and they all like turn to face the door and see what it is. And Esther walks in her like 900s outfit, and Klaus gasps, and Rebecca's like, mother?
Yeah.
They're all obviously shocked. We thought she was dead. That was the whole reason for the rift between Rebecca and Klaus, and now it's probably a part of it for all of the siblings.
Other than being in coffins for 900 years.
Well, like Elijah. Yeah. He was only in for like a half season. Yeah. But anyway, Esther walks in the house, like not really saying anything, looking at Klaus. And Klaus kind of looks away, you know, very much giving child who's in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
And Esther gets to right in front of Klaus and says, look at me. And then she asks if he knows why she's here. And Klaus is teary-eyed, and he says very, like, hopelessly, like, you're here to kill me.
Yeah, he has full tears streaking down his face.
It hurt. I was like, oh, poor Klaus.
Yeah.
Even though he's terrorized everyone.
Even though he deserves this a little bit.
A little. Yeah. Yeah. But Esther says, Klaus, you are my son, and I am here to forgive you. And she kind of turns to, like, everyone and says, I want us to be a family again.
Dramatic ends.
Yeah.
Cut to black.
Yeah.
It's so insane.
Yeah, this is a wild episode. Mostly
really
just because I love where this is going.
I love everything. I love all of the originals so much. I love all of their actors. I love everything about this setup.
It's so
I love
well
the
done.
precise way Esther's like voice.
Yes.
Look at me.
Yes.
Like, she does this like really precise like enunciation. She drops her like chin a lot when she talks. It's so, I don't know, she's so interesting to me.
It's so like a little like overdone.
So, yeah.
Like kind of.
Yeah, it is in a way, but it's so
But it
proper.
makes so much sense. Yeah, it's so proper, and it feels right for a mother too.
It does.
Like, talking to him like this.
Yeah,
it
does.
It's well done.
It is well done.
It's not overdone, but yeah.
But also, I kept laughing during the scene because all I could think was Finn is probably looking around at the electricity, at the furniture, and is like,
what the hell is this?
Witchcraft has really advanced in the past like 900 years. Like,
he's like,
I can't fathom electricity.
He was like, wow, alchemy was real. Like,
alchemy was real. You know, he had no idea what was going on. He was just trying to roll with the punches. He was like,
I was thinking that too because I was thinking at least Esther, like we know she's been talking to like Alaric behind the scenes, so it seems like she has some way of knowing what's going on.
She's a witch, so I think witches can see wwhat's going on.
Yeah.
Witches never seem to be much like baffled with real world because they watch, they observe it.
Exactly. But his mind must be blown. Even Cole.
Yeah, 100 years. That's a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah,
Did
that's a
indoor
lot.
plumbing even exist in 1910? I don't know.
Maybe
They
probably had it because they were like originals. They probably had a ton of money.
Orleans,
but like,
yeah. But still, the amount of things he didn't have that they now do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be wild.
It's gonna be a good catch up.
Yeah. But let's hear what the voicemail host has to say about this.
Yeah.
Hi, girls. I love the podcast so much. Season 3, episode 13 is the episode where Elijah comes back, which I love, and I love the fight scene between Elijah and Klaus. Say how a terrible parent Bill Forbes and Abby Bennett is. I think Bill Forbes and Abby Bennett are probably the two worst parents. I think Bill Forbes is probably more worse than Abby Bennett, but we all know how good CW is at making terrible parents in their teen dramas. It really do make me heartbroken because the fact that Bill really didn't want to survive or stay around for his daughter. Like, that's the least thing he could do. He could stay alive for his daughter. That's probably the best thing he could do for her.
Thank you to our voicemail hosts. Love hearing from you all every week.
Yeah, make sure to call in next week for Dangerous Liaisons.
Yes. Oh my gosh. If you haven't already, I mean, get in now.
Get in now.
But anyway, to wrap up this episode, for deaths, we have Alaric killed by Elena.
5th death.
Yeah, 5th death for him. No wonder he's crazy. Yeah. And first kill for Elena, too.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think, right?
I don't know.
Who else would she have ever killed?
A vampire.
Oh, yeah. I mean, maybe. Yeah. I'm probably
First
forgetting
human.
someone. But yeah, first human. But anyway, Bill was killed, I think we should say by Alaric.
Yeah, he's killed by Alaric.
Yeah. And then the girl serving at the dinner with everyone is killed by Klaus, of course.
Yeah. And then Bill again. Uncompleted
I
transition from a vampire. So he got 2 deaths this episode, I would say.
Yeah, Bill killed. This is like our magical reason that we always have like a one stray.
Yes, there's always one stray who just magically died by the end of the
like
season. And it's Bill this time because he didn't complete the transition.
Yeah.
So 2 deaths for him.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got our out of pocket or things we would have done differently. This was another episode where I didn't have like a ton that I felt was out of pocket or would have done differently. The one thing that came to mind was Klaus still refusing to undagger his siblings and then still obviously trying to pull one over on Elijah.
Yeah.
Like, I just thought that was a little out of pocket of him,
That's
but also funny. But also, the thing that was a little out of pocket to me was the writers. For all of the dead dad vibes, I was like, we didn't need 3 dead dad vibes. That was a lot for me.
That was a lot.
I still like it, so it's okay.
Yeah. My only out of pocket, because again, there's nothing really out of pocket in this episode, but Elena just stabbing Alaric, no thoughts. Like, she just went for it. Which
I mean, she had logic there.
she did.
She knew
but
it would
I
work.
would have been too afraid, personally.
I personally would have been too afraid too. I think I could be pushed to do it. And the realization she had of
she's
like
desperate.
She's desperate. You can't trust the paramedics. You can't trust anybody. So best she can do is kill him herself.
Yeah. No, I think it's fair. Again, I don't feel
It's so out
strongly
of
about it. I
pocket.
didn't really have
I kind of
anything.
think the winner is Klaus for me. I
Yeah,
just feel like
that's a good
he
one.
usually deserves it if no one else does.
Yeah. No, he is out of pocket. I think that's good. So Klaus is our winner of out of pocket this week. For quote, I actually had quite a few quotes this week.
Oh, really?
Surprisingly, yeah.
I only had one.
Oh, okay. I guess I'll give a couple of mine. It was said out loud, but it was more of a written quote. I love Damon's note to Elijah. Dear Elijah, let's get together. Plot the destruction of your brother. XOXO, Damon.
Love, yeah.
Love, obviously. Damon says a little quip when he's saying they need to buy time for Abby and Bonnie. He says, let's give our wicked witches a chance to pop the top off the coffin.
That's a good one.
I just thought that was funny. And then I did have a little shout out for Bill's quote. I like the "This is life. This is what it means to be human." But now that we've dissected it, I hate it.
I
So
said I don't
scrap
like
it. Scrap it. And then I only had one more. I'm racing through all of them since you only have one.
No,
But
you're all good.
my
I
last
usually have 5, so
yeah, I know we flip flopped on this one.
yeah.
And then my only last one, which is I guess what I would pick as winner, I had Stefan. Where's the lovely Elena tonight? Stefan says, I don't know. Ask Damon.
That's a good one. That's a funny one.
Yeah.
You didn't hit mine, which is funny. Usually we
Interesting.
have like the same one.
I assume it's a Klaus one.
No.
Oh,
Who's my other usual?
Damon, of course.
The other usual.
Elijah?
Yes.
Okay.
He hasn't been around in a while, so we forget he's an option, but it's usually Klaus, Damon, or Elijah with me.
Those are the top 3. For
Of
sure.
course it was Elijah. This was the one quote that I kind of knew was coming and was like kind of looking for, and I always like it. As soon as I heard it, I was like, I love that.
Yeah.
Is when Elijah says to Stefan and Damon, this is family business. I love that this
I
is
love
family
that.
business. It feels like the start of like the originals. It's such like a, because it's the first time you're seeing all of them.
Yeah.
And it's the first time it's really getting addressed. And when he says this is family business, I was like, let's go.
Yes,
This is originals time.
beginning.
So
Yeah, I'm good with
I had
that.
to do that. So easily swayed.
Easily.
You had so many good ones though too, but it's hard to choose
It's
against a
hard.
funny one, especially
I
when you've got
know.
one like that feels really like thematic in a way.
Yeah.
It's hard to like go against those two, but
I like This is Family Business because I love the originals. That's
I
good
know.
enough reason for me.
Might as well just always give it to an original if we can.
Yeah, truly.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
to
that
Elijah,
works for me.
this is family business. That brings us to our song of the episode where we choose the best song.
Yeah.
There were a few songs this one. They're all emotional. I had a winner and I had an honorable mention.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I like thought about doing 2 of I think like the 3 songs.
Yeah.
As, like honorable mentions or whatever, but I'm just gonna give another shout out to Michael Subi for the
Oh my
original
gosh.
scoring that
It is
plays
the
at the end of the
best.
episode.
I know.
I know we've said it, we've called it out. I feel like in every episode these past few episodes,
Yeah.
but it really hit in this one for me when they were all
know.
back.
I
But
like it in this one too. I wish it was on Spotify.
I
It
know
would
it's
be
on
my number 1
Spotify.
stream song at the end of the year
Yeah.
at the Wrapped.
It's also been on we've also mentioned it in every episode, so it'd be on the playlist like 6 times.
Yeah,
So
it really would.
Yeah.
It would win a lot.
So I don't feel strongly about a winner. So if you have
Okay,
a winner,
fair. Well, so my honorable mention I wanted to give was the classic last emotional song
course.
is Hate and Love by Jack Savaretti. I'm terrible with names, so I'm sorry if that's wrong. That's
yeah.
when Caroline's dad dies and when Alaric wakes up. It's just a good last emotional song like we always say. But for me, the winner was a little bit earlier. It was with Wings by Amy Troop, which is when Caroline is talking with her dad about him potentially becoming a vampire and realizing that like he's gonna die.
Yeah.
I just liked the sound of this one. It reminded me of a Bon Iver song. When it started playing, I kind of thought it was the one from Twilight. It kind of reminded me of that, like Rosalind. And
that.
it was so noticeable to me in the scene, and it sounded emotional in the scene. And like I went back and listened to it after, and I was like, I do really like this one. This is like a good
good with
emotional
that.
one. So
Yeah, I
with
like
Wings.
that. I have to give it a closer listen.
Yeah, give it a listen. I liked it.
Yeah.
See if anybody else catches the Bon Iver vibes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll be adding With Wings then to our best song of the episode playlist. We have a playlist where we have every single winner of best song for every single episode up to this point. And we also have a season 3 playlist that has all of our winners and honorable mentions for all of season 3 so far. So you can check out both of those linked in our various bios and descriptions. You can also find there our TikTok and our Instagram where we're always running polls. We post memes, edits, clips from the podcast, all sorts of things for you to interact with and join the community. And yeah, we always have fun and dig up old fun memories of the show. So follow us there.
Yeah, and you can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can watch the video version on YouTube if you want to join us next week, because
oh yes,
you absolutely should. It'll be season 3, episode 14, Dangerous Liaisons.
Yeah, the Michelson Ball.
Yeah, the Michelson Ball.
Nothing else to say.
No further words.
Nothing else to say.
We can call it there.
Next week's episode might be 5 hours long. We'll see.
Yeah, join us for part 1 of season 3, episode 14, Dangerous Liaisons.
I could talk forever about it, so.
I really could. We'll see. We'll cut ourselves off, I guess.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching it or listening to this one. Bye.